I'm Chrissy. I'm an alcoholic. The car accident thing was like, oh man, I got in a car wreck today, so I don't have to go do this. But here I am. It was funny too, because cops came and I was like, God, do I have insurance? God, do I have this? Is everything okay? But you know what? It was. And I have insurance. And I did have a license. And I was completely legal. What? So there's that little fun fact. So yeah, I'm Chrissy. I'm an alcoholic. I have a home group. It's Keeping It Sober. We meet Tuesdays and Saturday nights. My clean date is March 13th, 2019. And I have a sponsor, and she is a sponsor. And I think I said all that right. I guess what I'm supposed to do is tell you what happened, what it was like, I guess, if I'm going in the right order, and what it's like now. I grew up in Smithtown, Long Island. I was born and raised there. And I have a mother who's an alcoholic. And I did not know she was an alcoholic when I was a child because my life was normal. I had a mother and I had a father, and we went on vacations and we did things together as a family, and there was a lot of love in my house. And I didn't know anything about alcoholism growing up till one day I had a conversation with an older cousin, and she told me that my mother was an alcoholic. And I remember asking my mom, "Are you an alcoholic?" And she said yes. And it wasn't too long after that her being an alcoholic and she was in recovery, we started tagging along to meetings with her, and from a very young age, I knew what Alcoholics Anonymous was. And so fast forward just a little bit through the childhood, because, like I said, my childhood was normal up until, and I can remember, it was a Thursday night too. My father pulled us all into the kitchen, and the last time he did that, I have a sister and a brother. They do not suffer from this disease. And we thought we were going to Disney World again, because the last time they pulled us all on the kitchen table and they had like a nice little family talk with us, we wound up going to Disney World, and we were like, yes. However, that was not the case. They called us in to let me know that all three of us, that my parents were getting a divorce. And that was just, it was shocking, because here we are with this happy family, with this beautiful home, and, I didn't even know that anything was, how would I know? I think I was maybe 10 or 11. Or 10, about to be 11. But I would say that's when things took a turn for the worse, because, Mom was an alcoholic and now she's going through divorce, so she started drinking again. And I'm at that, through my mom's alcoholism, I was so young that, I only knew her to be sober. So this whole whirlwind of events, just took place, and she had started dating somebody who was in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they started drinking together, and things started to change. So she would not come home. She would not pick us up from school. She would forget things, and I became angry. I became very angry as a child. I remember that. And it was one of my dad's days to pick us up, and he picked us up. We went, we did our thing, we went bowling, we did whatever we did. And when we came home, she wasn't there. So he took us in the house, and the phone rang, and it was her, and she was calling to let my father know that she was not coming back. She was gone, and that we would now be his responsibility. And I remember that just being, so detrimental to me. And I think that's when things really started to turn in my life, because I could not understand how she could do that. How could you do that? Your mom, what do you mean? And I was angry. And I remember the next day, my father too, I gotta let you guys know, he is not well. He is not an alcoholic, but he is not well. And anything that he could do to turn us against my mother or tell us things that we shouldn't have been told, it was all out there on the table at this point, because now he's angry too, And so I remember the next day, she was coming to get her stuff, and I packed it in black garbage bags, and I threw it on the front lawn. And I was maybe 12 at this point, or maybe 11 still, I don't really know. And that was okay. My father allowed me to do that. He wanted me to do that. And I remember her coming in to my bedroom, and I was crying, and I was distraught, and her just telling me how much she loved me. I'm like, love me? How could you love me? How is that even possible? How could you love me and you leave, you know? So that was pretty much what set the tone for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, so now, you know, total abandonment issues, total no self-worth, no feeling of love anywhere. And I became a very rebellious child. And we lived with nannies. And my mom would, you know, she was out doing her thing, and so it would be, I'm coming, I'm going to pick you guys up. She wouldn't show. Dad is in our ears. Look at your mother did, da-da-da-da-da. There was a lot of that. It was just a lot of toxicity, you know, it was terrible. And we moved from the only home that we knew. We moved to a new town, new people, and my dad worked. So he was never around, and we had a nanny, and when I got old enough, he fired the nanny, and that became my job. And I have a younger sister and a younger brother, and like I said, I was a defiant little brat. So I didn't get my way, and I didn't get what I wanted. I raised hell, and I did do that. And eventually, it got to the point between my father and I. Also need to let you know too that he was very hands-on, abusive, physically. He had no problem putting his hands, you know, hitting us or any of that stuff. Mostly my brother and I, never really my sister. She didn't talk back too much. We did. We were mouthy. But, through all this time, my mother's partner, her drinking buddy, he overdoses and dies. He overdoses, he dies. We are told by my father that he overdosed and died, you know, that he was on drugs or whatever it was. She gets sober. She gets sober for a little while, and, you know, I want to go live with mom. And my dad was strict. So I did. I went and lived with mom. This time I'm probably about 13 or 14. It's like my freshman year of high school. And this is when things started to really take a turn for me, because this is when I started making friends and I started drinking. And I'm going to keep this related to alcohol the best that I can, but there are other substances involved in, you know, in my life. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. And, you know, other things started taking place. And no matter how hard my mother tried to bring the reins in on me, she just couldn't. I had no respect for her, none. And I made her life hell. I really did. She couldn't tell me what time to come home because I wasn't coming. I'm 13. Facts. I just wasn't. I was going to do what I wanted to do, and I didn't care because I'm 13 and I'm grown. And who are you to tell me what to do? You're not my mom, you know? I was just so angry. And then she couldn't handle it anymore. And I remember her calling my father and telling my father, you need to do something with her. So my father's idea of doing something with me was, back in New York, they have this thing, it's called a PINS petition, person in need of supervision. It's basically kiddie probation. So we went that route. First time I stepped in a courtroom, I was 13 or 14 years old, right there. And that was the first time I stepped in the courtroom, and I left the courtroom in handcuffs. And now I'm even more angry. Like, what? You know, what is happening here? I don't understand. And I was handcuffed, and I was brought, you know, through the little tunnel downstairs and into a holding cell. And I'm scared, and I don't know what's happening, and I don't know why I'm here. And I know that I'm out of control. I do know that much at this point. Like, I know that, like, you know, that I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. But like, really, as an adult now, I can look back at that, and really what it boiled down to is, like, I just wanted somebody to love me, show me love, and, you know, but it would have been hard back then, too. I mean, it was rough. So from that venture into that courtroom that day, into that holding cell, I wound up in this place. It's called Project 350s. It's in Hempstead, Long Island, and I was scared. I was 13, 14, whatever. And here I am, and I'm in this strange place, strange people, and they're not very nice to me. And from there, the next day, I guess I was more like a holding area, but it was a house, and I remember just crying myself to sleep that night in the bed. And then from there, I got transferred, or transported, I should say, by the sheriffs to a place called Community House, and that's in Center Ridge, Long Island, you guys don't know. And that was for, I guess, out-of-control teenagers. And I spent 2 months there, and my father at this point has nothing to do with me. He won't see me, he won't speak to me. His main goal is to get me committed to a long-term place called Madonna Heights, which is a god-awful place in Long Island that nobody wants to go to. And my mother and my grandmother stepped up for me the whole time that I was in this, this juvenile place. And they fought the court system so that I can go home to live with my mom. And that was a mistake. So, I was there for 2 months. I went to school. But while I was there, this transformation took place because, I never really knew who I was. I didn't really, know who I was until I got sober, because I was everything that everybody else was. Just, I hear a lot of people say that, and that's just the truth. So here I am, and I'm just this, little girl from Comac, Long Island, nice area, uppity area, and I come out of that place and I'm wearing bandanas around my head and I'm wearing pants that are falling off my butt, and I'm just this little gangster girl, because that's what these people were there. So I adapted, and that's what I always did. I always adapted to whatever surrounding I was in. I just became what I thought you wanted me to be, or what I thought I needed to be in order to fit in or survive or whatever the case was. So coming out of there, I go to live with my mom, and again, that's a terrible idea and she's sober at this point too. She's, she's trying to work her recovery program, and I am far from there, and I'm just completely defiant. Do what I want to do when I want to do it. School, go? I don't think so. I would literally walk to school, just to, sign into that homeroom class, turn around and walk out. I never went to high school, ever. I think I made it maybe 4 months into my freshman year, and that was it. And then, so we go from there, and little old defiant me, still doing what I want to do, ripping, running. I'm 14, 15, At that time, I guess my mom, she really did try to do the best that she could with me, because sober mom was way different than mom who was drinking. You know what I mean? She tried and she couldn't, and again, she called my father to go back home with him, and he was like, I don't think so. And I stayed with her for quite some time, and then she had met my stepfather, and she started drinking again. Only now I'm not this I'm still a little girl. But I'm a little girl who's been through some things, and I know, what's happening now. And she's drinking, and she's defiant. We're both defiant. And I was just again angry. We lived in a house, and she never came home. Never came home. 14, 15, we're in this house. My little sister comes to live with us at this time, and it's just complete chaos. There's no toilet paper in the house. There's no food in the house. There's nothing. We'd call my grandmother. She'd have to come over and bring us groceries, bring toilet paper. And mom is out there, and she's just drinking, and I'm at the house, and I'm just drinking. I'm drinking too, amongst other things, and we're just having a party, and life is grand, because at that point it was. That was okay. And my sister, it was her birthday, my mother never came home, and I remember her crying, and that just broke my heart. And I called my father, and I told him that he needs to come get her, and he did. And my grandmother came too. Ooh, good God. But he didn't take me with him. He left me there. And probably because of my own doing, my own actions, my own behaviors. However, if you knew it was that, it was bad. It was that bad. And he just came and got her. And I stayed. So, and it just continued. Just continued anyway. She got away, so she was good, and that was okay. That was okay with me, because I wasn't going to change what I was doing anyway. I look back at it now, and yeah, those are things that have bruised me internally. But so gather my thoughts back. Yeah, so we're there. Eventually, what winds up happening is my grandmother steps in, and I go live with her. And that is the most normal I've ever had in my whole entire life. My grandfather's also an alcoholic. Aunts and uncles are alcoholics, family disease. Yeah, we suffer from it. But my grandfather, he didn't drink anymore. And when he did, we got a hotel room. We were smart. We didn't stay in the house. But I lived with my grandmother, and she got me back in school a little bit. Now, I didn't go to regular high school because I was not allowed. I had to ride the short bus and go to that school, because my behavior, if I look back at it now, it was out of control and obnoxious. And I thought I had this image to uphold, and really what it was about was, I guess I was, angry and trying to be the cool kid. I want everyone to like me, There was a lot of drinking and drugs through all of this time. There has never been a time that there has not been. And, my grandmother did the best that she possibly could with me. And the only time that I had any kind of normalcy was when I was with them, when I lived with them. It got to a point now where she wanted me to start staying with my mom on the weekends. And so I did. And I mean, the fights, the chaos, the drinking, it was, I didn't want to be there. And there was an incident that took place, and something happened, and my mother told my grandmother that I was, that I had made it up and that I was on another substance, and that I imagined the whole thing, and that wasn't the case. And I convinced my grandmother that I was telling the truth, and she didn't make me go back. So that was good. We fast forward through, because that was pretty much my teen years. That's what it was. It was just constantly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I moved out on my own when I was 16. My mother signed me out of school, so that, because there was a point where I went back to live with her and my stepfather, and I just didn't want to be there. I wanted out. I mean, I hated being there. It was pretty much, if you look at, I was 16, and, they're drinking and they're partying, and their friends are there every weekend, and hey, whoa, but I want to drink and I want to party and I want to do these things too, but, I'm 16, so they were like, but anyway, they weren't very good role models. She signed me out of school, and I got my own place. And that did not last very long, because what 16-year-old, that's on drugs and drinking alcohol that could possibly, keep that up. So then I bounced around, and I was homeless. I was homeless for a summer. And after that summer was over, I wound up back with my grandmother again. And again, it was somewhat normal for a little while. I stayed with her for quite some time. And I, eventually wound up back out on my own again. My 20s and those years, it was fun. I was going to clubs in New York City, and I was just living this life, and it never really was, there were no consequences yet, I had a job, and I made really good money, and then I had my own place again, and, I'm 18, 19, and I pay my bills and have a car, and, not bothering anybody, and I'm just doing life high, doing life drunk, but I was doing life, kinda. And then, so 20s, somewhere around 21 was the first time I went to jail. It was in Riverhead, Long Island, and I went to jail and did a little 90-day, extent there, and I thrived. I did excellent there. There was structure. There was, so I did well, and I came home, and I was in a relationship with somebody, and I was able to. There were times in my life where I was able to put the substances down, but the only thing that I never did put down was a drink. So like there was always alcohol, because alcohol is socially acceptable and alcohol is not cocaine. You know what I mean? So it was like there was always that. The job that I was involved in at the time was it was in a bar, let's just say that. And so, hand in hand, drinking, and it was okay. And the guy that I was dating at the time was an alcoholic too. I didn't know it then, but if I look back now, it was completely dysfunctional. And again, every relationship I've been in has been dysfunctional. So after that, shortly after that relationship, and let me tell you this too, because I wanted to touch on this. The second time I went to jail, my grandfather came with me into the courtroom. Now, my grandparents were my lifeline. They were the only thing that ever gave me any kind of hope or guidance in life or anything. And my grandfather came into the courtroom with me, and I got sentenced again to 90 days. And my grandfather was like this, tough Irish guy. He ain't gonna let nobody, but he was looking at me and tears in his eyes. And I looked at him and I was like, Grandpa, it's only 90 days. I got this. I can do this. He died when I was in jail. And I think he knew. And it was either I could go to his service before anybody else, or I could go to the house for a deathbed visit, which is what my mother arranged. And I did. I walked into my grandparents' house handcuffed and shackled with 2 sheriffs that escorted me. And I got to see my grandfather. And when I got back to the jail that night, he had already passed. So that sucked. That sucked. But at this time, I'm not even really thinking about that. I'm just thinking well, I got to see him, you know what I mean? He was sick, I'm not even thinking about the fact that it's my actions that have created this. This is why I'm there, and this is why I don't get to be there. None of that's coming into play at any of this point. And could fast forward a little bit. 2 years later, I was living with my grandmother. Me and my grandmother stayed living together now since my grandfather passed away, and it's working out for us. She's I'm still using and I'm still drinking, but I'm somewhat under control with it. You know what I mean? It's not completely balls to the wall yet. And she comes home and tells me she has stage 4 lung cancer, and that. And she used to always tell me too, we'd have these conversations, smoke cigarettes and drink coffee, and she'd be like, I'm not going to be here forever, Kristine. I'm not going to be here forever. And I really believed that she would be. For some reason, I just believed she would be. So she gets sick, and there's all kinds of family at the house. She also gets prescriptions for some heavy duty stuff. So what do? I take it, And throughout the whole time she was sick, I was up in my room with her patches stuck to my body, not really knowing what's going on, because I was completely out of it. Finally, my aunt came to me and she said, you need to leave. You're going to have to get your own place because, I remember basically my grandma was going to pass away. And I did leave. I left. And I didn't really go anywhere. I bounced from here to there and everywhere. I never really had anywhere to go. When my grandmother got to the point where hospice and stuff was involved, she went to stay with my aunt. My aunt, she died at my aunt's house. And it was said to me later on that she didn't want to be in her home because she didn't feel safe. And that was probably my doing. So the last time I saw my grandmother alive was on Christmas Day. And her last words to me were to shape up. And that sucked. And so she passed away December 27th, and I honestly don't remember what year because they were all blurred together at that point. And, my family's like, well, don't you come to the service? I don't know how you expected me not to, because I couldn't deal. So I was a complete mess. My family was completely cold to me. I was unwelcomed, I was unwanted, and they made it known. I went to the first day of her service. I was not sober, and I did not go back. I did not go to the second day because I was stuck in a room somewhere, not able to move. So there was that. And after she passed away, that is when it got bad. I don't know how, but I wound up in New York City. Here I am. I'm in New York City. I always want to live there. However, not like that, because I wasn't really living. I went to a treatment facility in upstate New York. I stayed there for 6 months, but I drank. I drank there too. I got through everything. I got thrown out. And then what my life became, because I had nowhere to go. My family wouldn't take me in. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. My life became bouncing in and out of treatment centers, wherever I could stay, wherever I could lay my head. And when I wasn't in those treatment centers, I was on the streets of New York City. Never dealt with the passing of my grandmother or the grief or the loss or any of that stuff, because I just was numb for the next years to come. So through that, I want to make sure that I really get into the solution. I do need to touch on this, though. Through bouncing around in and out of those treatment centers in New York City, I met a boy. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And he was not one of us. Shortly after that, I moved in with him. And he was everything that you think he would be, considering who I was. You know what I mean? Here, I'm a damaged girl. Like, I don't even know who I am. I don't know anything about myself. All I know is that I like drugs and I like to drink alcohol, and that's just what I do. And, at the time I was in a treatment center, so hey, yes, I'm sober, Anyway, we moved in together, and he was extremely abusive. That was okay with me. Completely okay with me, because I had a place to stay, and he would apologize after, and he loved me, and that was that. Broken bones, cuts, broken nose, all of those things. And I never saw that as a problem until I got sober. We were together for 12 years. We were together for 12 years. And through that 12 years, I was also the problem. The codependency that was involved in the relationship was detrimental to me. He was my biggest trigger. I didn't know that until I got sober either. And the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life was leave him, just so y'all know that. And I did that sober. So really, after touching on that a little bit, that kind of brings me a little bit more into the solution. The reason why I was able to leave him was because I was sober, and because all of a sudden I started to understand that I had worth. Like, I started to find who I am without a substance in my body. Well, first let me tell you what got me sober before we go there. So, and in and out of that New York City and those streets and sleeping in projects and doing all this stuff, Rikers Island was like a regular place for me to be, just so you know. And when I would go, I'd be grateful, because I still got, I got to rest, I got to eat, and I was good. And then I'd go back out and I'd do it all over again. And then that started happening here. So when it came to North Carolina, I was good for quite some time. Even bought a house, yay, with the toxic, abusive boyfriend. And anyway, so it was, things had progressed to such a point where I could not control it anymore. I had no control at all. I was completely out there. I was using substances that had my whole mind completely messed up. I was in psychosis. There were things that were happening that I couldn't make sense of. I didn't understand. And I was getting arrested quite often down here too, going to the jail. But this last time, that I didn't even know there was a warrant for me, and I was walking down the road. I waved to the police, like, "Hey guys, how you doing?" They were like, so they came and they got me, and I thought my little world was over. And I spent the first month there. I was angry that I was there, because it interrupted what my plans were for that day, which was, I had a 40 ounce of Old English in my book bag, and that's what I was going to do. But something happened when I was there this time, and there's no doubt in my mind that it was God. I have no doubt. I've always said that I believed in God, but I believe in Him in a whole different light now, because I had truly felt that His presence come and touch my life, because I have never wanted to not use before or drink. Never. And what happened was, and then there was a book, and it was circling around, and it was a God book, and I was like, nope, I'm good. I don't want it. Nope. Circled around to my cell again, and I had nothing to read that day, and I read it, and it was the name of the book. It's not AA approved, but it was Angels All Around Us. And I cried from the beginning, from the very beginning of that book to the very end, because what that book taught me was that I was not alone. And what happened in that cell by myself, all of a sudden it just made sense to me. I understood. I've always known that I was an addict, Struggled with the alcohol part. I never really wanted to be an alcoholic because I still wanted to socially drink. But all of a sudden it was clear to me, and it was clear as day, that I needed help. And it was like God just... My mom used to tell me, pray for the obsession to be removed. What? But it's like he came to me and he removed it. And I wanted so bad to change my life. And something just happened. And all of a sudden, I was okay with being there. Still wanted to get out of jail, though. I needed to get my mind right because my mind was not right. I was suffering, mentally from all of the things, the substances, the alcohol that I was putting into my body, and I couldn't. It was like pure torture. My mom had come to see me, and she had already gotten the bond money from my ex, and she was like, well, what's different this time, Kristine? And all I could tell her is, Mom, I don't know, but it's God. Mom has been sober for 12 years, mind you, by the way, now, so she's, and I just told her it was God. God is, I don't know what it is, Mom, it's God. Well, I was out 3 hours later, and I was sitting my behind in Moore Regional, waiting to get into the psych ward, not for detox, but because I was mentally not okay. And that's where my journey started. And from there, I went to treatment. I went to the Healing Transitions in Raleigh, and I got a better understanding of what Alcoholics Anonymous was. And I understood things that I never understood before, like that book. They break it down in such a way that I was able to understand that I actually do have a physical allergy. That anytime I put a mind or mood altering substance into my body, I have a change, and I can't stop. And all of a sudden, I wanted it. I wanted to be sober for the first time in my life. And I was willing to do anything and everything to get there. It didn't matter. And I came back to Moore County, and I stayed sober, and I was at the Bethany house. And then my little feelings got hurt by my little toxic boyfriend. So what did I do? I used over it because I'm going to show you. And and that relapse was the best thing that ever happened to me, because what I finally realized is I didn't show him anything. I didn't show him a damn thing. I just lost 6 months of sobriety, and that was the most sobriety I've had in my whole entire life. And what that did was it opened up my eyes to start to understand the type of relationship that I was in and where this was going, and that it was just the beginning of, if I didn't do something about this and make a change, that it was going to continue. And it was still at that point, going back and forth. And so when I relapsed, and I had to leave the Bethany house. And I went back out there for a little while, maybe 2-3 weeks, and I realized that is not where I wanted to be, that is not where I wanted my life to go, that I had a plan, and God had a plan for me, and I am just, I'm trying to control this right now. And I was around all the same people, places, and things, and nothing had changed with them, and everything had changed with me. My phone's going off, people in recovery calling me. I'm like, nope, don't want to hear about your solution right now, because I am in the problem, and I am okay with being in the problem. And but it wasn't for long. And I went to treatment again at Butner, and when I got out, I could not go back to Bethany House. My little world was just shattered. I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do. But my mother for the first time really in her life, well, in our relationship, I should say, stepped up and was like, well, you can come and live here. And I'm like, what? They never let me live with them. I've never lived with them, ever, except since I was a child. And I did, and I went and lived with them, and I started going to meetings again. That willingness was there. I did have a relapse while I was there, too. Same situation again. Damn boy. Hurt my feelings. And then I pulled it back together. They were in New York. Pulled back together before they got home. It would have been 3 years, March 20th. Instead, it's 2 years, March 13th. And what I started to do is I started to make a plan for my life. I started to think about what it is I want to do, where I want to go, what I want to be. And I started to put that plan into action. And I went and I registered for school. And I'm a college student. Like, to me, that's just amazing. Because, years ago, I didn't even have a house to live in. Or I literally slept on the floor in projects and stairways. And it was okay, and that didn't matter. You know what I mean? I never would have thought in a million years that, I would be able to do some of the things that I have done in my life since I have been sober. It's amazing. I moved in with my mom, and then I moved back to that house that I owned in Robbins because we were just going to have this great life together, and everything was going to be perfect. And however, it was not. But something happened because I had the courage to leave. I had the courage to leave. I had the courage to go get my own house and pay my own bills and not depend on him. And when I say all this, I'm telling you that none of this was me doing any of this. This was God working in my life. Because God showed up exactly when he needed to show me exactly what I needed to do. And all I had to do was pray and let him. I got to get out of my own way. And he's taken me out of every bad situation that I've been in and put me in something better. And I am second year in college and making the dean's list, doing really well. And I have my own house, and it's mine, and I don't depend on anybody to take care of me anymore. I don't. And sobriety has just been very good to me. I have relationships with people in my life that I truly, genuinely love and care about, and I believe that they truly, genuinely love and care about me too. And that alone is amazing. All those things that happened in my childhood have taught me, it's really given me an insight to know, what was really wrong. What was really wrong. Getting to the root of, why did I use and why did I drink and why did I want to be numb for so long is because I was just so afraid to feel, And now it's okay. And when I left that house in Robbins and I got my own place, shortly after, it's been a whole year now, no contact with him. And it's been amazing. And it was hard. But that was the biggest triumph for me through my sobriety was that relationship and ending it. And I struggled with that for a long time. But the thing about that is too, any other time that my feelings got hurt by that individual, my go-to was a drink. And I got through that without that. So I know what it feels like to be hurt or brokenhearted or in some uncomfortable feelings. And what I also know is that when things like that happen, this is how I look at it. When bad things happen, it's because something better is going to happen. And sometimes you got to sit in your uncomfortable feelings in order to grow. You know what I mean? You have to sit there and go through these things. So what I've, everything is like a learning lesson. And I've learned exactly how, I don't want to be treated. Exactly what I do not expect, to be my next type thing. Or any of those things. I've also learned what it really truly means to love yourself. I used to be like, what do they mean? Are you supposed to stand in front of a mirror and I love you? Is that how you do this? And then what I've learned through this 2 years is that love is an action word. It's not just something you say, it's something you do. So if I love myself, what do I do if I love myself? I do things that make me feel good, go to school and accomplish my goals and set goals and achieve them. You know what I mean? I stay disciplined. I love myself enough to not put alcohol or other substances into my body. I love myself enough to do that. I've committed to being sober. And every day I ask God to keep me sober. Every day I don't skip a beat on that. I skip a beat in lots of other ways, but I don't skip a beat on that. And at the end of the night, I do thank him for keeping me sober because I truly believe that without that, that I wouldn't stay sober. I try to get out of my own way. I listen. Not always. For the most part. I listen. that loving yourself was tough for me because I constantly searched for, other people to validate me, and love me and make me feel whole, because I never felt whole before. I didn't know what that felt like, and I'm still working on that. I don't know that I think I've come a long way, and I will continue to do those things. Sobriety is the best gift that I have ever been given in my life. And I just hope that God allows me to continue to stay sober for the rest of my life. And I think as long as I do things like this, stay in touch with people like you, do the next right thing even when nobody's looking, and continue to love myself, that I have a fighting chance. Thank you, guys.
Good job, Kristen. Powerful message.